It's your favorite show on Safe TV. Where's the trucking instructions? Hey guys and gals, we are back with another exciting episode of Where's the Trucking Instructions, and today we have a very special guest with us. This is Mike Peck. He is one of the providers at Everside, just down the road from us here in Defiance. Thought we would have Mike in and discuss some common health issues that truck drivers have. Some couple of really important ones we're going to cover today: fatigue, sleep apnea. I know nobody likes to hear the word sleep apnea or sleep study, but hopefully we can get you a little bit more information today and maybe make it not quite so scary. Mike, thank you for doing this.
No problem. Thanks for the invite.
Yep, we appreciate you coming by. As we all know, truck drivers, DOT, FMCSA, they like to keep a real close eye on everybody, and we all go for our medical certifications, either 1 year or 2 years, depending on the individual situation. Just as a medical provider yourself, what in your opinion, why is health and wellness so important when it comes to professional commercial truck drivers?
I would say, number one, health and wellness is important for everybody. So we talk a lot to people about eating a healthy diet, maintaining appropriate weight, getting regular physical activity. We know those things have a great impact at reducing health risk as you get older. Commercial semi-driving, I think the issue is because you're driving that size of a vehicle down the road, and an error, for whatever reason, that occurs in the truck can affect so many different people, driver included. So the DOT, FMCSA,
Yep.
years ago decided that they needed to get some consistency with DOT certification, so we all had to take a training course, pass a certain test, because they were hoping to get more consistency in DOT certification, because it was kind of all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So I think,
not to interrupt, but that kind of goes back to people going to a chiropractor, or because we get a lot of new hires sometimes come in and say, well, I have a DOT physical, my chiropractor did it. So you're talking about that consistency of getting really good, solid people doing good, solid physicals.
Right, and I believe chiropractors are still allowed to do it, but they need to take the course.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the application of those standards and holding people accountable to those standards, that's up to the individual. So some persons are frustrated if perhaps they come and see me and I say, based on what's going on, this is what I can certify you for and this is the information I need. And they said, I've had this for 10 years, I've never needed that. There still can be some gaps. So I try and follow the rules. My goal is to always help a driver stay healthy, fix some issues, and stay on the road and make a healthy living and take care of themselves and their family. But some issues require specialist intervention and some additional paperwork. So, I try and help them collect it and get them, keep their employment, but also maintain or improve their quality of health so that they can retire and spend their money on fun stuff and not doctor's visits and pills and stuff as we get older.
That's kind of the goal for everybody, isn't it? At least I would think. Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's one thing. So coming into Keller's, we like I said, we get a lot of new hires that will say, well, I have a DOT physical. It's still good for a year and a half. We have them come down and see you and get a physical, through us, through you guys.
Right.
We want to make sure we're catching any kind of gaps that happen, further down the road, or, maybe they got somebody who wasn't quite as above board or something like that,
There are three parties responsible for a safe driver on the road. Number one, the driver. When they fill out the history on their form, they're signing the bottom of that, and they're saying, I put down here what you need to know. So if a driver holds it back and doesn't put it down and we pass them, but something becomes evident, if something unfortunate occurs, they're going to be held liable for that. Mm-hmm. You're working on your end to the extent that you can to try and make sure the driver's healthy and should be on the road and that they handle the truck correctly, they know the rules and everything. I'm filling in the gaps from the medical side and just making sure that, there isn't anything that would put them at increased risk of having an accident and injuring themselves or anybody else. The intent is not to prevent a person from driving. The intent is just to follow the guidelines, to the best that they could come up with the guidelines, and nothing is ever perfect, but I try and help a driver navigate the rules, continue driving, but maintain their health.
Right. Yeah, because an unhealthy driver isn't allowed to drive, and a driver that can't drive can't make money, can't support his family. Right. So yeah, that's great. As a I'm training supervisor now. I was a driver trainer before that. One of the big things I always talked about with my trainees, and still discuss with new hires coming in, any of the drivers really, if they're coming to me for some extra training about something, I try to bring this up is fatigue. Fatigue is a big battle for truck drivers. I battled it when I drove for 30 years, and one of the big things that can be an underlying cause of fatigue is sleep apnea. Like I said in the beginning, it's a scary term. Nobody likes to hear it. Nobody wants a sleep study, but it is one of FMCSA's big things that they're looking for. Can you walk us through what you're looking for? I mean, I'm guessing you don't just say, okay, this is the 4th DOT physical today. Yep, he's going for a sleep study. All right. Can you walk us through some of what you're looking for to help you make that decision of whether or not they should have a sleep study?
Right. So you can't look at a person and decide if they have sleep apnea or not. So we have a couple questions, on the DOT form. Have you had a sleep study? Do you pause? I mean, they're screening for it. We have another form that a person completes that kind of assesses the quality of their sleep and the wakefulness during the day that's trying to help us decide whether or not they need a sleep study. But there's certain criteria that if you're a person over the age of 35, you have a body mass index above a certain number, you have 1 or 2 other diagnoses, you meet criteria for a sleep study. So many people meet criteria to have a sleep study done. Mm-hmm. So we're not, and we have a contract with Novosom so that we can get a home sleep study done at minimal cost to try and take that pain out of the process. But fatigue, not just in a semi, but for everyone, is a big risk factor when operating a motor vehicle. So if you have sleep apnea, you definitely are going to suffer from fatigue. You also have increased risk of atrial fibrillation and other health issues as you get older. Atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat, that's very difficult to get out of once you get it. So if we can find sleep apnea, fix it by letting you get quality sleep that rests your mind and your body, we can prevent, a lot of cases of atrial fibrillation. So that prevents the cardiology visit and the extra medications and electrical cardioversion or cardiac cath and other things to try and stop atrial fibrillation. So it's inconvenient, and it is very frustrating for drivers when we bring that up. We see it in their eyes and in their posture. We know this is not what they want to hear. But again, if we focus on, we're trying to certify you, but maybe our number one goal here is maintaining your health or improving your health and preventing bigger issues when you get older, getting a sleep study done isn't that big of a deal.
Right. And just so you all know, if you do get recommended for a sleep study, Keller pays for the sleep study. So it's not a big cost out of your pocket. If we're asking you or recommending that you get a sleep study, we will cover the cost of the study. And then should you be diagnosed with sleep apnea and you are going to require a CPAP machine, we do have discounted rates and deals worked out with a couple of different pharmacies here in Defiance. And they have payment plans and all that. So we try to make it as financially painless as we can. I don't know if there's such a thing as financially painless, but try to make it as easy as we can anyhow. Before we got started, we were discussing some of the sleep apnea stuff and what they're looking for, the different types of sleep studies. The difference between the home sleep study and you got to go, sit in a hospital or at a, medical facility overnight or whatever. Can you kind of talk about some of those, what a sleep study actually entails?
Well, for our Novosom sleep study, it's going to be a home sleep study. We place the order, the company is going to contact the driver gets to choose when they want the equipment to show up at their residence. So a lot of guys have it show up on a Friday if they have the weekends off. You wear the device for 1 to 3 nights. It's a monitor on your arm, something over your finger to sense or measure your oxygen concentration, strap around your chest to sense the drive or the intention to breathe, and then some nose prongs in. It's measuring the intensity of your snoring. And then we get a report back from the company, and then we call the driver and talk about sleep apnea, how severe, mild, moderate, severe, and then where would they like the order sent to get the CPAP device. When you get a CPAP device, if you're diagnosed with sleep apnea, then one of the things we have to do within the first 90 days, and with a DOT thing, within the first 3 months or shorter, depending on how concerned we are about your sleep apnea and your wakefulness, is to have a face-to-face visit with them and review the compliance report. So the compliance report is going to be a report we get from the company that provided them their CPAP device, and it tells us how many nights out of the last 30 days did they wear the device, how many hours at night are they wearing the device, and it gives us a reading of their apnea-hypopnea index, or AHI score. We need a score less than 5 to show that their apnea is controlled. A score of 5 to 15 is mild sleep apnea. So if you're wearing the device and you still have sleep apnea, we need to have the device calibrated.
Okay.
So once we have that first 30 days done, then we extend the DOT certificate. But when the driver comes back every year, I'm asking for a 12-month CPAP compliance report. You call your DME. Most of the new machines send the data over cellularly, so you're getting kind of feedback every day, a green dot, a thumbs up, or whatever, that you're wearing it enough. And then we can use that to document that you have sleep apnea, you're wearing the device, and it's being treated appropriately. Mm-hmm. If we start to see your AHI index going up, maybe it's showing that you're having more leaks, so maybe you need a new mask, or you need the tubing, you need to have the device calibrated or repaired. So it gives us a lot of information, and on occasion, for a driver who has quite a bit of weight to lose, if they're able to make a change to their diet and to their physical activity and they begin to lose weight, what we'll see on the report is that the amount of pressure required to keep them breathing effectively goes down. And I've had a few persons in the past, not just semi-drivers, lose enough weight that they lost the snoring. I mean, they cured their obstructive sleep apnea, they've been able to stop wearing the CPAP device. So wow. It gives us a lot of feedback. So the report is required to recertify you, but it gives us some information about how you're doing with the device as well.
Okay. So with sleep apnea, like other conditions like high blood pressure, that kind of thing, it's a 1-year certification?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say a driver comes in for his recertification and he or she doesn't have that, was it 30 days worth of information that they have to provide from the
at least
machine?
30 days, and we'll have drivers say, I only need to give you 30 days. But DOT is expecting us to make an assessment on a person's compliance with a CPAP device. Mm-hmm. So if we get 30 days just prior to the next recert, what happened for the other 11 months?
Right.
No one knows. And it comes on one piece of paper, whether it's a 3-month, a 30-day, or a 12-month report. So we just typically ask for 12 months.
Okay.
And it'll show errors or show some problems at different times. So we're not doing that just to be challenging about it. We're doing that to make sure things are working the way they're supposed to.
We've talked about going and getting a sleep study and what happens if you're diagnosed with sleep apnea. What about we go for the sleep study and nope, there is no sleep apnea there. But we're still having the fatigue issues, and we just, for whatever reason, we're having a hard time keeping our eyes open during the day or during our work shift. What steps do we take or can we take if there is no diagnosis of sleep study or of sleep apnea? Sorry about that. But we're still experiencing a lot of fatigue.
We're always going to review a person's list of medications, and if fatigue is an issue, is there anything they're taking that could potentially cause fatigue? I talk about the quality of their sleep. Each of us as adults should be aiming for 7 to 9 hours of sleep at night. Less than 7 too often isn't good for us and can cause fatigue. More than 9 hours at night isn't good for us. So is the issue they are not sleeping well, and what do we need to do to try and fix that? We talk about sleep hygiene, that people can look up and make sure they're not doing anything during the day that could undermine their ability to sleep at night, like napping, not a good idea. We would also talk about, are they allowing themselves enough time to get good sleep? A person who maybe starts out really early in the day and gets their 10 or 12 hours in and there's still daylight left, they'll go out and maybe do some other things, and they need to get up at 3 in the morning to begin their shift, but they're going to bed at 10 because they're still doing stuff. Mm-hmm. We need to get that 7 hours worked in there somehow in their schedule, and maybe that's all it would take to fix that. We could also look for low thyroid or some other conditions that we might need to address that would improve their energy, maybe their diet, and they're eating healthy foods and not snack foods, and they're not doing too many sugary drinks or carbonated beverages and not getting in the nutrition. There's a lot of stuff that we could talk about. So it's not all just about sleep apnea with fatigue.
Right. Okay. So really, I mean, the recommendation for a sleep study, it's not a, just a, hey, sleep study. That means I'm going to have this machine stuck to my face for the rest of time. That's the first step in trying to figure out what's going on.
It's absolutely one of the things we need to consider. And depending upon what we get from their history, maybe that's the first thing we need to look at, and with their certain risk factors, or maybe we explore other things before we go straight to a sleep study.
You mentioned just a minute or two ago about people who maybe they get up and they start their day at 3 o'clock in the morning and they're done. They got all kinds of daylight, so they just keep on working around the house and doing this and doing that, not giving themselves enough time to sleep. Is there anything to? Well, I know there is something to it because there's a name for it. The circadian rhythms? Am I saying that right? Yeah. So, somebody who maybe for years they've been working, midnight to 10 in the morning or something like that, or, an overnight thing, is it possible that, hey, maybe just a change in shifts and moving from that night shift to the day shift can make a difference?
No, I mean, I think that has to be a factor that we would need to consider if that seems to be what's affecting their ability to sleep. If their internal clock is not set to sleep, usually over time, you'll readjust. If you get consistent, go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time, avoid stimulants and other things that could undermine sleep with sleep hygiene, like we mentioned, you'll kind of get into the groove. But if you can't, sometimes you have to talk about what would be a better shift for you. Mm-hmm. Maybe long haul with driving so many hours at a time before there's even a chance to stop. It would be better to put you on something where there's some other stops in between. You get the same hours in the day, but it's broken up a little bit. So, everybody's got to kind of do a little bit of an internal reflection on what's going on during the day and what might fix this if apnea isn't the problem and we can't find anything else to go after.
Anything else in closing you'd like to share with the drivers as far as any kind of health things or anything like that?
I mean, I would encourage them, if you have any questions and you're not sure, don't avoid making a phone call to myself or whatever just to ask some questions if you look some stuff on the internet. Asking questions, getting more educated about it, usually helps everybody out. I don't have a problem with questions. We want you to understand what's going on with your health. For me, health number 1, family number 2, driving number 3, as far as priority. But, I'm open to answer questions and fill in any blanks. I hope no one feels like we're picking on them. That's not the goal. But we're trying to keep you healthy and legal and keep you on the road.
All right. Well, thanks again, Mike, for coming in. We really appreciate it. It's a lot of great information. And like Mike said, don't hesitate to call down there to the office at Everside. And he knows a whole lot more than I do. So don't call me about sleep apnea. Call Mike.